Doing that. Hi, I'm Michael Tobin. I'm on the board of the Wellesley Conservation Land Trust, and I'll give you a little bit of background about that in just a moment. And also did want to say we will be conducting two short polls, so have your fingers on your keyboard ready for that in just a few minutes. And Hillary.
And I am Hillary Truslow. I am the Interim Vice President of Marketing Communications at Mass Audubon.
So you saw the introductions. The title here, Building Engagement with Social Media and Email Campaigns. And what you're going to see here is the contrast between a small land trust, the Wellesley Conservation Land Trust. We protect 45 acres directly in the town of Wellesley, and put on a few educational programs and advocate for open space across 10 of our small sanctuaries. And then the Mass Audubon, which obviously is one of the largest, 38,000 acres protected in Massachusetts, professional staff doing the work. And you'll see, we'll talk about how we each have learned through the years to use social media for our purposes, how we each use email and email campaigns, and that we can't call these best practices because we're not sure what that is. But we think that we've built up some good practices over the years, and we want to share those with you so you can learn from them. And the key is that it's about a journey. You're not going to be able to walk away from this session and be able to do all these things. It takes time to learn the skills, capabilities, get volunteers involved, and so forth, and then it builds upon itself. So with that, go on to the next slide there. Before we do that, we do want to just see where we are. I'm going to launch a poll now. And so everyone get your fingers ready on your keyboards and launch the first poll. And hopefully you are seeing that on the screen. This is about your use of social media. Do you use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or anything similar today? Give us an idea of how many posts that you do per year. None per year, or 12 or more than one a month is what we're looking for. Has that poll open now? Are you seeing the poll and responding?
It looks like someone in the chat made it sure to make sure you check the polls tab if it's not a pop-up. So I think everyone might be able to see a polls tab.
Polls, thank you. This is for good question, Judith. This is for your land trust, your organization. How often does your organization post events on social media? We have an upcoming talk. We're looking for volunteers to do invasive cleanup next Saturday. We've got a bird walk coming up. Here's a photo of volunteers. That's what we're looking for now. All right, saw the poll and responded. It did pop up. I'll give you 5 more seconds to respond to the poll. And I'm going to end it now. And do you see that? I'm not sure if you see it. 3% say no social media, 21% 1 to 5 posts, 14% 6 to 12, and awesome 62% of you more than 12 posts a year, more than one a month. That's great. By the way, as I said, this for us is just good practices. So we hope through your questions, you'll also help teach us some of maybe the good practices that you're following. The next poll is, let me launch it. It might take a moment to do it. Second poll, how do you maintain your contact and or membership list today? Do you use Excel? Do you use a reply all function like I was doing when I first took over that 4 or 5 years ago, and just added names to the reply all from time to time as we got new members or got someone's name, or using a contact management system? All right, give you 5 more seconds to respond to that poll. And I'm going to end it now. All right, this is an advanced group. 10% aren't doing anything. 14% are using Excel or similar. 70% are using a contact management system. That's great. And 4 or 5% are using something else. And I'll be curious, maybe you can put in the chat there what you are using in that case. So that gives us good basis. This seems like a pretty engaged group already. And with that, Hillary, let me turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. So as I said, I work for Mass Audubon, and I fully am aware that Mass Audubon is on the larger scale of a land trust that is here today. So what I thought I would share a few specific strategies, that have helped me and may help you on your quest to build engagement. So first, I thought I'd just share a little bit about me and my background. I've been at Mass Audubon in the marketing department for 11 years now, and I remember when I first started, I was able to present live at MLTC. So this is really exciting for me to be back. I like these emojis because you can usually find me clanging at my keyboard, sometimes writing gobbledygook, but I try to think about what to write. My role's always been about digital engagement, including the website, social media, and email, and it's grown over time. But the thing I love most about my job is that there's always something new to learn. Technology is constantly changing, and I'm always learning more about the outdoors. So there's endless opportunities to try new things. A little bit about Mass Audubon, if you aren't aware, we're a 125-year-old conservation nonprofit. This is our 125th anniversary this year, and we protect more than 38,000 acres of land throughout Massachusetts. We're almost at 39,000. We're saving birds and other wildlife and making nature accessible to all. But we can't do that without our community, and we are so grateful for our 135,000 members from the Cape to the Berkshires, our program participants that come to our programs throughout the year. We offer day camps. We have 6 licensed preschools. But really, it's the visitors that are coming to our sanctuaries, experiencing the outdoors is why we do this. We're out there just to reach everybody and get people outdoors and appreciating nature. And they can do that throughout the state. We have over 60 wildlife sanctuaries that people can experience, again, from Berkshires to the Cape. And this is our footprint, our physical footprint, but where we are digitally is probably maybe similar to a lot of you. We have a website, we have our email campaigns, we're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram for the most part. And we try to hit all of it. But, even though we have, 7.4 million page views of our website each year, about 120 cumulative followers on social media via our 26 Facebook pages, 11 Instagram accounts, and 1 Twitter account, and we've delivered more than 3 million individual emails in a year, we know we're just a drop in the bucket when it comes to digital intake and different people's digital intake, which is why I like this graphic. This is a graphic that gets updated every year from an organization called Domo, and it's that data never sleeps. It's how much data is consumed every minute of every day. So that means every minute of every day, users post 347,222 Instagram stories, and every minute of every day, Facebook users are sharing 150,000 messages, and every minute of every day, 1.4 million people are making video calls, definitely this year. And so really you need to make the most of your digital presence, and data may not sleep, but we do. And when we're not sleeping, you're running programs, we're outreaching to our neighbors, our partners, our donors, we're fundraising, writing reports, and so on. So with that being said, how do you make the most of your digital presence? And I really thought a lot about this, and I think there's 3 words that really kind of ring true to me, and that's you need to integrate, innovate, and evaluate. And if you do these 3 things and kind of strive to do them with everything you do, you will be able to amplify your message and build engagement. So first, let's talk a little bit about integration. I really like this graphic because it really speaks to that whole 360-degree angle, but also a hub and spoke approach to marketing. And it's something I talk about a lot with the people I work with, that we don't have enough time in the day to create different messages for different channels. Also, our audience is not always in the same channel. So in order to reach everybody with the same message, you really do need to bring it all together. And so if you look at those wheel, at the hub is your website. And if you have a website, this should be the center of all your content. It should be where almost all your content lives. And then each spoke is the different channels that you can share your messages out. So if the hub is your website, a spoke is, social media, a spoke is email, a spoke maybe a blog, something like that. And this is really important because that way you can kind of have all your messages in one place and then share them out, and makes it able to save time and money, really. Now, there are some exceptions to the rule. There's some posts that you post on social that are just great for social media posts. a great picture of wildlife that you see, at a sanctuary, or, sharing someone's pictures that they share with you of cool snowflakes. You're not going to put that necessarily on your website, but it's great kind of social media content. But I always like to keep in mind that when you are creating content, that you got to think about people's attention spans. And according to a 2015 survey, our attention span has been whittled down from 12 seconds in 2000 to 8 seconds in 2015. And a goldfish attention span, that's 9 seconds. So we have less of an attention span in a goldfish. And this matters a lot, because 9 seconds, that's not a lot of time to capture people's attention. So if you spend a lot of time writing this perfect email, and not only, if people have 9 seconds to like look at the email and read it, you might lose them. And that's only if they open the email. I don't know if you know this, but according to the recent benchmark reports, the nonprofit open rate for an email is about 17%. That means 83% of your list is not opening your email. And if they're not opening your email, forget about the 9 seconds to get their attention. They don't even see any of the content. So if that content only lives in your inbox, you're missing out on a huge percentage of your audience. The average organic reach for your Facebook post is only 5.2% of your page's likes. So again, if you spend all this time crafting the perfect content that only lives in email and social media, a huge portion of your audience, as well as your prospective audiences, are not going to see it. So instead, you want to really create that content, the most important content. You want it to live on your website. And then from there, you share it via email and you share it via social media. That way, you kind of hit the audiences where they are. And so I want to give a couple of examples of this integration in action. So here you can see a recent blog post we did, an email and a social media post we did on 3 land projects that were worth celebrating. So the picture on your left is we talked about it on our blog, so that's on our website. So we did that, and then we made it the prime story in our statewide e-newsletter that went out, and then we also shared the same thing on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So that way, if you're on social media, whichever platform you are, you got to see this post. If you're on our e-news list and you opened our email, you got to see this post. If you happen to pop on our website, on our homepage, the new blog post would be on our homepage. If you subscribe to our blog, you would have also got notification there. If you were Googling any of this, you might have come to this page as well. So it's just a great way to show that you can have one piece of content and push it out through a lot of different platforms. Another example of this is how we do Giving Tuesday. I know Giving Tuesday is one of those events that you kind of might question or scratch your head and it's like, is it worth it? And we think resounding yes, it's worth it. When we first started out with Giving Tuesday back in 2013, we brought in just a few $1,000s. It really was not a big impact, and we kind of questioned, like, is this worth like spamming everyone's inboxes? But we really did a concerted effort on bringing it all together. And last year, 2020, it was our biggest yet. We raised over $70,000 throughout our Giving Tuesday series. And we did that by kind of, again, integrating. We had a campaign that included 2 emails prior, 3 emails the day of, and an email after. We also had corresponding blog posts and corresponding Facebook posts that all had a similar look and feel. These images were actually from a couple years ago, but they just kind of really brought home how you can integrate your kind of content, have a similar message, and then push it out through all the platforms. And of course, you're always going to get a few people that complain that they get too many emails, but for the most part, people are used to it and they're okay with it. Now, if you're going to do some integration, there are definitely some handy tools out there that you can use to make things easier. This is an example of one that I like to use called Buffer. There is a free version and there's a paid version, and I like to use this one to push out content via Instagram and Twitter at the same time. What I like about it is that you can customize per network. So you can say, since Instagram and Twitter look a little different, obviously, you can have the same message and then you hit customize and it basically duplicates the message. And also what I really like is for Instagram, since you're limited to one link in your profile, this has an option called Shop Grid where you can actually put a link to each picture, and the link in your profile takes you to a page with all your pictures, and then people can actually click on that picture. So a really great tool. Also, if you're not looking for something that's a paid tool, Facebook Creator Studio is basically the business end of Facebook. And if your Facebook and Instagram accounts are linked, you can post to both channels at the same time, which is really easy. You can also schedule your posts. So it's just another way to kind of make integration a little easier. If you are integrating, I always like to have a word of caution that not all platforms do speak the same language. Here's an example from Seth Moulton's team from last year, I believe. And you can see that they were posting on Twitter and on Facebook, probably using one of these great tools. But Twitter and Facebook the tagging system is not the same. So you can see on the left on Twitter, the tags are blue. That means they're a live tag. And on Facebook, they're not. Just looks a little bad. And also they're not achieving what they want to achieve. So once you've learned how to integrate, you always want to innovate. And it's really important to try new things because the digital world is always changing. And it's also okay to be ready to fail because some things just aren't going to work. You're going to fall flat, but it's always good to try things and always good to revisit old ideas with fresh eyes. A really great example of this is QR codes. I hated QR codes before. I thought they were a waste of time. Nobody was using them. They were just kind of cluttering up things. And then COVID hit and QR codes became everywhere because nobody wanted to touch anything. You didn't want to touch a menu, no signs. And all of a sudden now everyone knows how to use a QR code and they become pretty much a way of life. And so we've really been trying it with fresh eyes, seeing again if they work. So we're putting it on flyers as a way to drive and amplify our content and drive people to our website where, again, the bulk of our content lives. These are great for when you're welcoming people to a site, if you have sites and visitors and they can kind of ask for donations or become a member or something like that. I'm going to talk a little bit later, but if you do use a QR code, I'll show you how to do this, but it's always important to track because you want to know if it works, right? What's the point of trying something if you can't track it? So we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Other things to do to try to innovate is if you experiment with going live on Facebook or on Instagram. It can be a little scary. I know for a lot of people I work with, they're always afraid of what could go wrong, and that's a fair assessment. But it can also work out really well if you're prepared. So this year, since we couldn't do our regular Groundhog Day at Tobin Farm, we went live with it, and it was really, really fun. We had someone behind the scenes, answering any questions or comments that were coming through, and then we had the people on site doing the filming and talking. If you're not really ready to go live, you can pretend to go live and you can kind of just pre-record and have that conversation and speak to your visitors and guests and just give them a behind the scenes look of what you're working on because it really is a powerful way to connect with people. And then you post it and you're there to answer questions. So that's another fun way of doing it. It's also good to innovate and have fun and not be afraid to be a little goofy within reason. So these are two recent memes that Mass Audubon took part in just to try to lighten things up and have a little fun. You can see Bernie visiting our Pleasant Valley Wildlife Sanctuary in the Berkshires and then kind of jumping on the bandwagon of the, tell us you're a something without telling us you're the something. We did tell us you're a birder without actually telling us you're a birder, and people had a lot of fun with that. If you're curious about knowing what works or what doesn't, a fun website that I like is called Guess the Test. They put up a different A/B test on different days. And it's really cool because I like to take these tests. An A/B test is basically when you're trying something out and you want to see which one is going to work better. So let's say you're sending out an email and you want to test two different subject lines. I have found that no matter what, usually the thing you think is going to win doesn't win. And so it's a great reason of why you should do testing if you can. A lot of the email platforms like MailChimp or Constant Contact have A/B testing capabilities. And so it's an interesting way to see, does an email subject line actually change how people behave? Will using a question mark make people open it versus not? So if you do an A/B test, it's always a good idea just to change one thing, just to see if that kind of changes how people respond. And then once you're done integrating and innovating, you always, again, want to know how it's working. You want to evaluate. And the first step to evaluating is knowing where you stand. I mentioned the benchmarking earlier. M&R benchmarks are a great wealth of data for nonprofits. They look every year at the different elements of all the work we do, whether it's open rates, action rates, donations. You can see here, this is just the at a glance, email, mobile, fundraising and donor retention, and then social media and ads. And I find this really helpful because people that aren't in this every day might have this expectation that, 100% of people open your emails or 50%. And when you say, well, our 20% open rate is actually pretty good if the benchmark is 17%, that's some powerful information to see what you're up against. Another really great tool for evaluation is just Facebook Insights. If you have a Facebook page and you don't spend time in your insights, I highly recommend that. You can see your most recent posts and you can kind of see the different kinds of posts and how that's driving engagement. But I really actually like this pages to watch. If you haven't seen that, you can select the different pages, whether it's other land trusts like yourself or other pages that you kind of aspire to be, and kind of see how you're matching up. So you can see here, I picked, a few different ones that are much bigger in size than us, but I can see that, even though, we're much smaller than Appalachian Mountain Club, when it comes to followers, our our engagement for the week based on posts for the week is pretty similar. So I know I'm doing something right because I'm keeping up. But I do recommend doing that because it's really helpful to see what other people are doing. And Google Analytics, if you don't have this on your website yet, you definitely should have it. I mean, there's just so much data, sometimes too much data, but there may be a volunteer who loves data that wants to help you out. But you could see where people are coming from, how they're getting to you, how long they're staying, how quickly they leave your website. And by knowing this information, you can adjust and amplify your message, because you could see, oh, wow, it looks like there's a lot of people coming to our site to read our blog post about foxes. Maybe I should put out a post on foxes on our social media, because that's what people are looking for right now. Google does have a really great free academy that you can learn Google Analytics for beginners, advanced. And so if you're interested in that, I highly recommend doing that. And I mentioned about earlier QR code tracking. One of the things, if you've ever clicked on a link on social, you're going to see a URL with a lot of tracking at the end. And they're using a tracking code. And this is really helpful, especially for things like QR codes, but even through email campaigns, to know what is driving people to click and what actions they're doing once they click. And so this is the Google URL builder. And what's really cool about it is you create a campaign name. It's what you want to call it. And then you could put in, so I did an example here, the medium, I did QR. So I know they're scanning a code, an entrance sign. And that way I know if someone went to the site, they clicked on they scanned the QR code, they went, and then I can actually see if they actually became a member or they made a donation. So again, it's all about that evaluation and knowing what things work, so I can then keep innovating, keep integrating, and keep evaluating. So that's all I have for you today. I'm going to stick around, and I'm here to answer questions at the end, but I'm going to hand it over to Michael. Please feel free to follow us on any of our social accounts. And if you have any questions after this, you can feel free to email me at hdtruslow@massaudubon.org. Michael, I think you might be muted.
Thank you. Thanks, Hillary. Lots for us to aspire to with that, but it's nice to see we're already taking advantage of some things, and we'll continue down the journey. Let me just a moment here to share my information. And there we are. We're live. Okay. Find the next button on there as well. All right. So what I'm going to be talking about is really one of the key themes here is about amplifying your message. That everything you do, there's a way to amplify it through social media, your email, your website, as Hillary said. In those old days of just posting something into your local town newspaper that comes out once a week, is gone. You should continue to do that, but there's so much more that you also need to do to be able to get to a larger audience. So key takeaways here from my presentation, as well as from Hillary's, is to improve your email campaigns and start if you haven't started. And we'll talk a little bit about list management software like MailChimp, which we have adopted. And it's free for up to management of 2,000 contacts and more emails than any small organization would consider sending. So we'll talk a little more about MailChimp. And that the greatest number of donations, interestingly enough, still comes from our year-end annual newsletter. And we did start including a remittance envelope in there. They're relatively cheap when you start buying them in 1,000 and 2,000, and you can use them over multiple years if you don't put a date on them. And so I would recommend it's notforprofitprint.com is where I found you can get those remittance envelopes, and it's been successful for us. Techniques for using Facebook, Instagram, Twitter for getting more eyeballs, and what's working, what's not working for us. Zoom actually has allowed us to deliver 6 times the number of educational programs we were delivering in only a physical world. We've been able to increase our attendance 4 times per event than in the physical world. And we've been adding an average of 50 new names, contacts, emails to our contact database in MailChimp from every one of the previous Zoom events so far. So those are 50 new folks who are going to get the emails and a chance for us to get them further engaged. I'll tell you how we did that. The role of old media, newspapers, postal mail. I said we still get most of our donations through the postal mail, and so we will be continuing to do that. And as I mentioned earlier, you can't learn all of this at once. So keep these presentations. I think you can download them from the site and start the journey, refer back to them, and just keep asking questions. And as Hillary said, the fun part is about learning. I learn something new, right, every week in doing this around technology, around social media, engaging with other folks. And so it's fun to do as well. It does take time. There is a lot of time required to do as much as you want. And then there's always a longer to-do list than I have time to do. But it's also the way in which you can find ways to engage volunteers. Some volunteers like to get out into the sanctuary and do cleanups and get their hands dirty. Others either aren't able to do that, or in other times they're happy to help you clean up your mailing list, or create a web page, or high school students going out to sanctuaries and taking photos and posting to Instagram. So there's are ways through this to help engage volunteers. And so my recommendation is just get started and start the journey. As I mentioned, the Wellesley Conservation Land Trust, 45 acres of direct land protected across approximately 10 sanctuaries and 4 land conservation restrictions easements. Organization has been around for over 60 years, so it is one of the relatively early ones within Massachusetts. And let you read a little bit more about all the great things we've done there separately. So some of the key goals that I've articulated now, and I don't know if I fully articulated when we started on this journey, and I joined the board 6 years ago now, is that I wanted to build awareness of the organization in town. The organization had been around for 60 years, and there were definitely periods, as I've learned the history, of ebbs and flows of its engagement in town, and so wanted to become relevant again. There was land coming up for sale and development, and more we knew on the horizon. So how did we get at the table and get engaged? We wanted to build our own engagement of attendance at events and get volunteers. We wanted to increase our membership through and dues, increase other donations, and really restart the donations of land and easements, which had been stale for about 30 years for the organization. And what you can see here is some of our great results so far along this journey. When I took over the mail list, we had about 100 people, 100 emails on the list. Today, we've got 1,500 emails, plus an additional 500 postal mail without email addresses. So our contact database is now over 2,000 people, and we just went to the paid version of MailChimp, which is the free version is up to 2,000. So it's been great. That, by the way, we've increased our donations to be able to afford to pay the $300 a year now. That it is. We grew our membership and donations, membership dues and donations from $11,000 3 years ago to $21,000 this past year, and we just see that actually accelerating. And that doesn't include grants. And now that we are more active and engaged in volunteers, we're able to better make the case for grants to support projects that we want to do. So any grants have been on top of those monies. As we've got our first land donation discussion in progress in 30 years, and what we hear now all the time, which kind of just makes me love it, and really is just, you guys are everywhere. I want to become a volunteer. I want to join the board. How do I get involved? And that is great to hear, especially as the conversations in town are around climate change, parcels of land going up for sale and development, 40Bs in our town, taking over some parcels. And so forth. So the fact that people recognize us and we can now be at the table in the different organizations is great. So let me talk about MailChimp, which I've mentioned a few times. It's a leading cloud-based marketing platform. It was built for small organizations. Constant Contact, I know of, is another one. I believe my understanding is Constant Contact was more built for medium and large size organizations, but now also supports smaller organizations. It is primarily an email-based campaign and contact list database. It does support websites. It does have integration with Facebook and Instagram and so forth. I haven't used it so much for those aspects, just haven't explored it much. And the way, in fact, I even got into finding out about MailChimp from the, as I said, reply all I was really doing for our emails up to that point was our website was relatively stale. But didn't look modern, wasn't web mobile friendly, and started down the path that I met with a vendor at this event in person a few years ago. And so we started the website update process and talked about the integration of the website with MailChimp. But it turns out I ended up going down that route and the social media route, and we still haven't updated the website. So that's still on the to-do list to do. But we've done so much else along the way, and so we'll get there. I have been updating the basic information about upcoming programs, and who the board members are, but that's really about it. It's relatively stale today. Oh, the other thing it does do, not great, but it does accept donations online through PayPal. And so we do send people to our website to pay for membership and dues through the website. Today, it's not great, and so we do need to go and update that. You do get a 15% discount if you're a nonprofit, and if you've done some, there's some additional discounts if you put multi-factor authentication on your account to protect it. So it's costing us now $24 a month to support up to 2,500 names, email addresses, and postal address. So you can just see some of the things there. Here's a campaign. This is from a year ago. Eagles are landing. As people were in town starting to spot bald eagles, and people are really fascinated by them. And I was seeing posts on the town Facebook page, the community blog. People were replying to and posting, 60 deep to someone's post of an eagle. I wanted to capture that and be part of the conversation for the land trust. And so, here is just one way in which I did that. So got permission from one of the folks to use her photograph and put out a campaign about it, an email blast. Some of these are relatively a year old from when I first our current statistics and things. But what you can see, MailChimp, like all these platforms, Google, Facebook, has great reports. And so you can spend a lot of time doing data analysis and getting some insights. But even just to get started, what you see almost always is no matter when you launch an email, most people, the bulk, read it in the morning. People get up, read their email, and then get on with their day. There's a small bump when you first launch it in that first hour from people who probably get buzzed and beeped every time they get an email from it. So anyway, so some great reports about how many have been sent, how many have been opened, how many have been bounced, how many people unsubscribed, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then on every email, at the bottom of every email, I have this text, which is please support open space protection in town. We had created with our fellow board member, Judy Barr, who's on this. And Judy, if I forget anything or get anything wrong, just put it in the chat and I'll try to catch it. Keep me honest here. But we created, with Judy's leadership, going from just 2 levels, a individual and a life membership, to multi-level. And this has been a great success. So that's on our website and through PayPal, and is listed at the bottom of every email. And so you can just click on every email, donate here. And folks who didn't do it in the annual campaign, or who weren't a member yet or weren't on the list, they can go do this at any time. And yesterday, when one of our non-members, but someone who lives far away but had been part of a previous program, sent in $365 yesterday. That just makes my day, and our treasurer's day as well, of course, too. So that's just something I do. And then you can see here, this is the contact information for one of our subscribers, as they're called. And so Marianne, you can see some statistics about her. She opens up 75% of the emails that we send to her, and she clicks on 30% of them. So relatively engaged. And her contact information, phone number, and so forth are stated here. And I'll write notes as well to keep track of folks. If, oh yeah, Marianne, has made some comment at something, and I just want to remember that. Or her husband, who we track separately, as a different name, so I kind of just link them through the notes section there. And then I use tags. This is where I'm kind of hacking MailChimp a bit. MailChimp is not a membership database, and was not intended to do that. And we are using it, though, as such because of all the great reporting. And so while our treasurer does maintain who donates and memberships in an Excel spreadsheet, I will copy over that information, look to keep this up to sync so we can do a lot of reporting around it. And so you'll see I have tags. So she paid her membership dues in 2020 member. She also paid, actually, it's relatively small, so 2019. And I know that she is a town meeting member, and I had imported the list of town meeting members, which is public in our town, into this. That's for 2019, I think it was. And so she's a town meeting member, and so want to be able to know that oh, this is someone who's got influence and probably pretty involved in town. And so you can see here as well on the last campaign, the Eagles. We sent it to her at 12:44 in the morning. I'm a night owl, and that's when I do this kind of work. She opened it in the morning, and then she clicked on one of the buttons in it. And so if I just go to the next screen, what I can see is that email for the Eagles. It compelled her to pay her membership dues or pay another donation of $35. And so I get those emails, and our treasurer gets those emails as they come in. Always a little bit of a dopamine when that happens. Here's my experience with MailChimp, and this is I turned it on coming up to 2 years ago, and I talked about it. I turned it on about 2 years ago. Had about 300 names on our email list by that point, and we've grown the email portion to 1,500 by this point over the last 3 years, on average, and it's relatively consistent. 40% of our audience opens each email on the first send. So when we blast it out within 24 hours, 40% of those people who we sent it to opens it up, which is above average compared to other nonprofits, and metrics within MailChimp also gives you some benchmarks. I get about 2 to 7% people who click on any link within their email. I try to create a fair number of links, so whether it's the donations at the bottom or learn more, or if it's about Eagles, then here's information about Eagles on the Mass Audubon site, for instance. And so for those who want to explore and are interested learners, I want to engage them and give them paths to stay engaged, even if it's not to our website or to our event. And then I find 1 to 3 people unsubscribe, and I used to take offense to this. Why would you want to leave this great content? Let people move away. When I add people to this list from various lists that I get, they're not always, they hadn't always upfront said, yes, I want to be subscribed. So go to the bottom there, and I do it. And when I get onto too many lists, I unsubscribe at the bottom of every email by law that has it. And MailChimp manages that for you. And then MailChimp has a great feature. After 24 hours on your phone, it says on the phone app, it says 60% of your subscribers haven't opened the email. Resend to them now. And so and then I generally always hit it, resend to them, and I find 10% more of the total number respond. So open it. So we're getting 50% right now, average of our 1,500 that we're sending out for each email blast. And I'm sending about 1 to 2 a month emails. So some nice statistics, and I'll be curious how these float with yours. See if I can get to the next slide. Next button is not advancing so quickly. All right. Could use some technical help.
You want me to try to share the screen, Michael?
Yeah.
All right, why don't you stop sharing and I'll share.
There's screen. Next, previous.
If you hit the share screen again, it will stop sharing your screen.
No, it's not doing that. Let me do a browser refresh.
All right, hopefully Michael will be back with us soon.
I'm back. Do you hear me now?
We hear you. We don't see you. Do you want me to try to share my screen, or do you want to go try to do it again?
Well, let me try it again.
Okay.
All right, uploading it again. Give us a moment. All right, you said you hear me. I see my face. So I hope I'm live there.
Right,
Okay.
we see you.
Great. Sorry for that delay. And so here's some learned practices and hacks for I've learned and used within MailChimp. Every contact has to have an email address. And so for those people who we don't have email addresses for a variety of reasons, my hack for that is if we have their mailing address, I use their mailing address, 123 Main Street, because there's only 123 Main Street in town. And then I use @null.com, and that just null.com is a fake email address. And if you do accidentally send an email to that email address, it'll just bounce. But then in MailChimp, I unsubscribe the contact, meaning it keeps them in the database, but it doesn't email them in the email blast. So they're unsubscribed from email. So that way I've got a unique identifier, 123 Main Street. Which we then use, for instance, when we do our annual mailing, the neighbors and abutters of our sanctuaries, we've gathered those mailing addresses, and they're in our database, for instance. And then so when John Smith, who lives at 123 Main Street next to our sanctuary, sends in a donation or says, yeah, I want to join your email list, I can then update that contact and replace 123 Main Street with John Smith's actual email address. And so that also is very rewarding as we start to fill in the blanks for the folks who are neighbors of our sanctuaries. I pull in names and people who are engaged with Facebook and Instagram. So now that you're doing all these posts and events and people like and follow, and I'll show you a little bit more about how to get that happen. I see names who show up and like everything, but we don't have them in our database. So I go into the white pages, I put their name and I look up their mailing address. And so I put them in and gather it. That's a great activity for volunteers, students, to go do. And I'll give you a few more tips about that. And I said I use tags to track useful data. So who's a member for every year that they're a member? Who's attended the various events? Do they go to the educational events? Do they like the hands-on cleanup events? Interests? Are they town meeting members? And those type of things to understand. And then also I use it when I do import a list, get a list from somewhere, also to know where they came in from, where did we get their information from initially. And then so some things you can use in any system for doing it. How do you add and also cleanse the data? And this requires a lot of diligence to do. So again, as much time as you put into it, for me, it's a multi-year effort going and trying to clean up for some of those ones that we have email addresses for, but we don't have mailing addresses. And I know I want to get their mailing addresses because that's where most people are sending in their donations still today. Doing those lookups. So it's a multi-year and ongoing initiative to clean up your data. So use the old-fashioned hard phone book and look people up in that. School directories. If you've got kids, kids used to be in, we got those old directories. A lot of the information in there is still good. Other board members and volunteers, sports teams and email lists. I'll see that Jill Smith has been liking the photos on our website, for instance. And I'll just do a search in my email and find out that, oh, her child and my child were on the same softball team 10 years ago. And the team email list, I still have it in my old Gmail account, and I now have her email if it hasn't changed. So I'll find these just in my own emails. My kids have all just recently been through the school system. Church and religious lists. Go to your town clerk, get your voter registration list. They'll give you an Excel file with all that information. Get the town resident list. They'll give you an Excel file. We use Google Drive, and so I upload those information into our board member Google Drive. And so we share that information so we can all have access to that information. And it's public information. Whitepages.com is a great resource. I do recommend you use the incognito mode on Chrome when you use it. It tries to send you a whole bunch of posts and pop-ups and everything else, so it's just cleaner when you use incognito mode. As I mentioned, historical records that are on my hard drive and email. You just do a search, and things come up that from your activity in town. And if you do use Google Drive, as Google does, everything becomes searchable. Photographs, the text on a photograph becomes searchable. And so you type in someone's name or a place on our Google Drive, and we find a whole lot more information that we can then use and leverage. And as we've been doing previously and now doing even more so for our Zoom educational events, we get our library to co-sponsor. We get our town Natural Resources Commission, the Trails and Open Space Town Commission. We get other green organizations, our sustainability group in town to co-sponsor the events, which means they're publishing it in their email blasts. So if the sustainability organization has 15 people in theirs, 1,500 people in their email, and we've got 1,500 people in ours, right? What's the overlap? There's probably some, but there's a lot that's not overlapped. And so that's where for every one of our events, Zoom events, we're getting 50 new people's email and address added to our database. It's coming likely from these other co-sponsorships, as well as continuing to post it onto Facebook, post them in the town newspaper, put them on Patch and Nextdoor and so forth. So I'll talk about in a moment. So we use those things. And so Facebook practices. As I'll start at the bottom, I've got a checklist, which I have online, and I just maintain and follow that checklist religiously. And I'll continue to update it as I learn new things, as I find another resource in town that should know about every one of our events, for instance. So that's something that just really disciplined and helps us do this at scale. And so when we go and create an event, whether it's a Zoom event, as we've been doing now, or it's as we've previously done at the library, we're going to have a talk with someone from Mass Audubon or something, or we will have a volunteer event. That gets decided in one of our committees and say, hey, okay, on this date, we're going to go do this thing. And then I follow my script. What do we do with that? And then so I'll create a Word document that has that could essentially becomes the flyer. And then I'll use the content on that flyer to create a post and create an event in Facebook. And then I might promote it, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then I'll take photos related to that event. It's going to be talk about birds. Here's a photo of a bird. Or after the event, here's photos from the event. Here's a photo of the volunteer. You're amplifying every activity you've got. So I'll start posting photos of these events, or just separate ones. Here's a photo of our Guernsey Sanctuary. The ice just melted. Here's the vernal pool, right? Different times of the year. Always fascinating around it. I'll sometimes promote. On average, I'll say right now I do about $10 a month in promotions on Facebook, for some of our events, and get varying degrees of success. And actually, recently I've been getting less success than I would like. Not exactly sure why, but come to that in a moment. And then the key thing is to invite people to like your photo and page. So it could be just your own friends in town who you're friends on Facebook with, and colleagues, and get your board members and your volunteers to do the same. And so you can proactively invite them to do it, and then to follow your page. I'll show something else about that in a moment. Use resources to track down those emails. As I mentioned before, that's where get the phone book out and start finding those folks and adding them to your mailing lists. Follow the similar organization. So Mass Audubon Broadmoor is in town, and so we follow their page and see what events they're doing, and then we'll share those as well to our membership. And so we want people to see, and all of a sudden we become helpful to Mass Audubon Broadmoor Sanctuary in supporting their events that are relevant to our mission. And so cross posting. So I'll go to the garden clubs, and again, got a list and build up a list of here are the 17 Facebook groups I'll go to and post our event or post our relevant thing to them if it's relevant. Right, and it's got to be relevant to do it. The kids type of, it's a kids educational event, then then you want to do it to the PTO organizations, for instance, PTA, PTO, so forth. So that's the discipline that I'm following to around our events and posts. And then let me show you a few examples. And so I'll create an event, or create a post. It doesn't have to be an event, just create a post. And Facebook gives you how many people have seen it, how many people have engaged with it, meaning they've kept it on their screen for more than 3 seconds, or they clicked on it, something. So Facebook gives you some great things about this. And then, as I mentioned, I will create I've got for either Wellesley only or Wellesley and the surrounding towns. I've got some groups set up within Facebook for that. And so then I'll spend $10 and say, yeah, for the next 3 days, spend $3 a day to promote this to people who we don't know, who have these relevant interests or not in these locations, either only in town or the surrounding towns. People who would be interested in connecting. And so as they come, and that content then gets on front of Amy Fox's screen, and she says, oh, I like that. What I can then do is I can see that, and then I can say, invite her, send her an invitation through Facebook to invite Amy Fox to like our page, and which also means then in the future, every time I post, she will be seeing it. So we converted a paid person to lead now to one of our members on Facebook. Then I look her up, add her to our contact database, and now hopefully I've got her into our email list as well. And after I spend that $10 in those 3 days, it tells you how successful you were. And so, 70 post engagement, is that good? Is that bad? There's a lot. People's full-time jobs is to analyze this data and to help improve it. So I'm learning in terms of what's working, what's not. As I mentioned, I think my current lists and interest groups are getting a little stale. And so we'll probably need to look on Facebook for how to refresh those to get in front of different people. And sometimes a post goes viral. We had this one last year, which unfortunately we had to cancel this event due to COVID. But somehow someone shared this and shared it again and shared it again. And this post got put in front of 18,000 people. And it's almost the number of people we have in town. And so I do know it went beyond Wellesley. And there were 5,000 people who were, reached and engaged over just the small periods of time for this event. And so that's the goal is, right, you through your email database and through Facebook people and Instagram who are already following you, you don't have to pay to reach folks in your target audience. All right, quick word on Instagram. It's a great visual tool, as Hillary mentioned as well. I find it great to when we get some student volunteers to get them involved and say, hey, why don't you take over our Instagram account and go around and post nature photos in town to do that. I don't see a lot of engagement, a huge amount of engagement. You can see we got 123 followers. We're following 270, I think it says. So for me, it's a nice to have, but it's not huge. I mentioned Zoom has been just phenomenal for us. We are doing now one educational event a month through Zoom for the last 4 months. We create a topic, we find a speaker. Judy, who's on this call, has been doing the legwork for this, and then I followed my script for how to go promote it. And what I love about now having people register for Zoom is that they have to register for Zoom, and I make them put in their email address and their mailing address. And then at the end of the event, I just download that and upload it into MailChimp. And it tells you, oh, you already had 40 of these people in your MailChimp database. You added 60 new people to the database. And I'm like, cool. Now with their mailing address, with their email address. We had sign-up sheets. We tried to get people to do this at the library or at our different events. And you can't read people's writing. They're in a rush. They don't want to give it to you that way. And so Zoom has been really successful for us for being able to add to our database through that registration process. Twitter, we do have Twitter and we use it a little. I don't think we've used it effectively, and you can see, 1 retweet, 4 likes for this post. There's not a lot of engagement. Every now and then, one of our tweets will be retweeted by the weatherman on Channel 10, who does follow us and who was one of our speakers a few years ago, and will get broader reach. But we just haven't figured out a way how to make this really successful for us. And as I said, for Twitter, I know as my friend who's in publishing, you got to feed the beast. You have to tweet often. You have to manage it. You have to follow other people. And use the hashtags. And so we just haven't had enough success on this yet, but room for improvement. And so key takeaways here, just to come back to it, as we just about to start to ask questions, answer your questions, put them in the chat there, as I see a few of you have already. So just get started. I saw 70% of you are already using a contact database. You can probably teach us a thing or two above and beyond what we just told you. But I hope you've learned something from how to add to the database, how to use your co-sponsorships with supporting organizations, the library, the green organizations, the trails commission in town, if it's separate from your own. Said Zoom has just really been able, the silver lining of COVID, to be able to reach folks. And I don't think, as I made a joke on one of the things where we had 240, it was 200 people show up, log in to the event, 200 people log into an event, and there were 2 to 4 faces behind every screen who had their video on. So call it 300 or 400 people showed up at the event. We can only fit 70 in the conference room at the library. So what does this mean in the future, right? What type of integrated programs are we going to be having? Yes, we'll go back to live events, but we'll probably always have some sort of Zoom feature in addition to or hybrid events. So, figure out how to use that. And then the old media. So, putting the advertisement, in the article, in the newspaper, in the blog, in Patch, I said, I keep the list. We've got a local blog, who gets to, and who has 6,000 active followers or something, every post active, who reposts our stuff, and so forth. So just gather where news outlets, where eyeballs are in town, who you want to reach, and make sure you're in front of all of them as appropriate. and start the journey. And so it'll take as much time as you want to give it, but it's a multi-year process. So we hope this has been useful for you. With that, I think we'll stop sharing if I can figure out how to do that again. Hillary, you want to come online?
I'm
And
here. Of course, now
we'll,
my camera is not working. They did warn us that sometimes when you turn your camera on and off, it doesn't come back.
I
Um,
think,
I can
do a
try to refresh.
refresh of your browser, and you'll have to re-enter. In the meantime, I'll go search for questions. Let's see.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
There you are. All right,
Right.
Hillary, I'll go through. Audubon Giving Tuesday. Is this a year-round event or just on Giving Tuesday?
So our Giving Tuesday is just around Giving Tuesday. We typically, Giving Tuesday is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. We typically start it a few weeks before. We kind of send just a thank you email to all of our previous supporters from the year, just thanking them for their support. We call it kind of like a primer. Then we send out one about a week before, just say, hey, especially last few years we've had a generous donor give us a match, so we'll say you can give now, get your donation out of the way. You won't get any emails if you give now. So we do that, and then 3 emails the day of. We have taken part sometimes, like I think especially in COVID, like last year during COVID, there was like a May Giving Tuesday. We did take part in that, but it wasn't a huge win. And we do send, obviously, we send appeals throughout the year based on different things either happening or based on our kind of giving schedule. So the Giving Tuesday promotion, it integrated like email, Facebook, like everything going together. That's just for Giving Tuesday in November or December sometimes.
What kinds of programs do you put, Zoom educational programs? We have for Zoom educational, again, Judy Barr, I'll give her credit for this, who's here. She has won the town horticulturist, has been our most successful, most popular one, gave us talk on invasives. And how do you identify invasives, not just in our sanctuaries, but in your backyard? And that was the topic, in your backyard. How do you remove them or manage or control them? And what are native alternatives for that? And this was a really involved program in that she went out with a student volunteer. They filmed live in one of our sanctuaries, didn't have to take more than 5 steps in the sanctuary, did 5 different, and took photographs and video around 5 different types of invasives, did video clips, we edited it, and then she gave the talk live, and then we spliced in, as Hillary mentioned, the live from on site. Here is a 3-minute video of the person identifying it and cutting down part of it and so forth. It was really successful from the people who joined. There was an encore request for it. And that's a town employee, right, who led that. We've also hired Joy Marlzoff has a company called The Joys of Nature. She used to be with Mass Audubon at Broadmoor Sanctuary. She's got her own company doing education. We hired her for 3 events. She's given 2 so far. Furry and fuzzy critters and their tracks in your backyard, we did in January. We just finished one on early vernal pool, and then we'll do a late spring or early summer vernal pool. And she also splices in live video taken the day before or the week before the event. And so that's what we've been doing now. And we've got some pollinator ones coming up planned for May, June in coordination with the town organization. We're doing planting pollinators and so forth. So sky's the limit.
Michael, do you charge for those?
We don't charge for those. We want as many people to attend, and I find people attending. I've got people from overseas who apparently attend, and people from other states. I probably won't mail to them when it's going to charge us for postal, but hey, like I said, I'll keep them on our email list, and if they want to donate or attend other free events, happy to have them.
Michael, there was a question about adding to email list. I did want to address, you do want to be careful about adding people to your email list that didn't explicitly say okay. I love the mining Facebook for engagement and kind of connecting those dots. I would definitely encourage everyone to kind of have that opt-in. You definitely need the opt-out. I think if you Google, and I know like I think MailChimp has examples of like compliant and non-compliant email lists. So I would definitely be careful about adding it. I think there is some great tools you can do. Facebook has a lead generation like ad you can run. So like all those people that you hit with an email, you can actually or hit with a Facebook post, you can actually guide them to a place where they can opt into your email list. So that could be a way that you can kind of do the same thing and getting people on your list in that
Yes.
way.
Thank you. Agreed. I am cognizant of it and don't want to abuse it. Other questions here. Does membership, short answer, if you pay your membership fee, do you get benefits? Not up to this point, though Judy and I are talking about ways in which we will do that. For instance, we've talked with, we used to run bird walks in May, every Sunday in May. It's a long history of doing that in town. We canceled it last year. We talked to our public health department, and we can run it this year with certain guidelines and reduced membership with reduced number of groups and sizes. And so that could be a way. We say to sign up for the bird walk event, you have to be a member first. And if there's room, we'll open up other ways. So that's just one example. We are thinking about doing it, but up to this point, it's just been the goodwill of folks to join. Website. Yes. Thank you, Richard. You hurt me, Richard, by bringing this up. As I mentioned, 3 years ago, I started down the path of updating our website and got waylaid with all these other interesting aspects. And I do from time to time, not only see if people go to the donation page, there's a fill in your information first, then click on PayPal. They see on that information page, not secure, and it scares them away. If I see them, they've actually filled out the information page, but didn't contribute through PayPal for their credit card, I will reach out to the person, and we get this every now and then, and say, "Hey, I saw you didn't think it is secure. Here's what, working on it, so forth, or here's the mailing address if you want to mail it in." So yeah, we're getting there.
Someone would like you to share your Facebook checklist, Michael.
Why don't you reach out? I was thinking of doing, sure. Why don't you reach out to me, to info at Wellesley Conservation Council.org for the info one, another artifact of the old website. Use info at WellesleyConservationCouncil.org. That'll get to me, and I'll share you a cleaned version of that script I use, checklist.
I think that might be all the questions that are in there for now. I know it's a lot, and I know that anything in digital can be overwhelming. It's really the sky's the limit, and you can, I think everything that you can do and try, especially with social media. It's easy and it's free to try different things. Post a picture, see what engages, ask a question. I find people really do want to just talk and share their love of the outdoors and nature. And so just start by, relating to people on a conversational level and talking with them. And, I think Michael's been doing such a great job. I live in the next town over, so I get his emails and I'm on the Facebook page and I see the events they're doing. And I think it's really exciting just to see how much it's grown. So I think really sky's the limit. I know I'm available if you have questions. I know through the info, Michael's available. And I know I can speak for myself. I'm really happy to be here. I wish I could see all your faces. I can only see Michael. I wish it's so weird not being in person, but I'm glad I could be here today.